The hill bent westwards past the crumbling church, and as I rounded it, the bakery came into view. Its painted trim and lace-curtained windows looked untouched by war, almost quaint except for the soldier stepping out of it. He was young and laughing to himself as he pulled the door shut behind him. Uniform unbuttoned at the throat, careless, at ease. The error in judgment revealed itself at once. My Grace had been stationed where civility was required. Tea, warmth, conversation, nothing extravagant. Just enough to steady men posted too far from home. The Commandant's tidy solution to what to do with her now. It was not sentiment that troubled me, but exposure. Repetition invites presumption. Familiarity blurs lines that ought to remain inviolate. That one of them might imagine himself favored by her was inconsequential. Men imagined such things constantly. The fault lay not in their thoughts, but in the absence of restraint around her. Her ladyship was inside, alone, carrying out her part without question, and no one, it seemed, considered what ought never to be made accessible at all. The shop stood square and pale beneath the high sun, its windows clear now that the fog had burned away. Inside, she moved alone, clearing one of the side tables with a rag folded in her hand. Her hair was drawn back in a modest knot, the kind meant for work, not charm. The plain blue dress clung in all the places a man might remember. Not provocative, or even intentional, but there was an elegance in the way it shaped her. Alistair said she now favoured her mother, and if that were true, I'd been right to come in person, for it was rare to come across such beauty. I'd seen Grace dance once at some tedious Christmas recital our families were obliged to attend. I remember sulking through it, counting beams in the ceiling, waiting for it to end. Girls in gauze drifted past without meaning, all of it interchangeable and dull. But then Grace stepped forward into the spotlight. It was not only desire that struck me first, though I had no lack of that for her. It was a sudden understanding of consequence. Watching her move, it occurred to me fully and without mercy that she could be taken away, and with her, everything that had ever been named mine. I saw it all at once, a house without an heir, a lineage that had held for centuries, brought to nothing through neglect rather than war, Ashcombe without purpose, Blackmere without continuity. Grace wasn't only a girl promised to me by our fathers and grandfathers. She was the last surety against the extinction of the very land we lived on. That night, the nature of my duty to our house didn't change so much as it came into focus. She was not mine in sentiment or fancy, but in necessity. And I understood, with a clarity that has never left me, that I would sooner see myself destroyed than allow her or the blood she carried to be lost. I watched her through the glass door. The tray clinked softly against the counter as she set it down, her hand brushing a crumb away, unaware she was being watched. My hand hovered inches from the door, but I let it hang there, suspended like the last thread of a dream I hadn't yet earned the right to wake from. I knew I couldn't go to her like this, so close to being untempered and undisciplined. The longing in me had to be spent, or it would betray me the moment she looked up. I would never ache for her in this way again once I stepped inside, and I had suffered too long to squander it. So I let the pain peak and fall away again. Only then did I push the latch. The bell above the door gave its soft little chime when I opened it, and I stepped into the warmth of sugar and yeast. She turned to greet me. No more the ghost I dug up when I wanted to torture myself, but her. But up close the truth was unavoidable. The dress wasn't merely plain, it was worn into submission, the sort of garment a person puts on because no alternative remains. And that was when the fury properly took hold in me. Yes, I realized she'd been placed among enemies, but something in me had always hoped they kept her well. But she'd not been cherished or protected at all. She was used. Any silly jealousy over imagined smiles or passing attentions evaporated. This was not about other men wanting her. It was about the fact that no one wanted her enough to stop this. If I had ever needed another reason to despise the rebels who took her, I had it now. They hadn't only stolen her from me, but they treated her as nothing when she was everything to me. And that was unforgivable. Our eyes met, not the way they might have had the world been right, not with joy, not even with suspicion, but something passed between us nonetheless. Her brow wrinkled and her mouth parted as if she were about to call out my name. She looked away, down, and left as something broke through the wall they had built up in her mind with their crude, backwoods trickery. And I recognized the gesture immediately, not quite remembering, not yet, but the first fumbling attempt to grasp what lay buried. Though she didn't know me outright, some part of her did, and that, for now, would suffice. "My lady," I said, and lowered my head as I closed the door behind me. Her entire face flushed pink from modesty, her eyes dropping to the floor as she smiled, as if the title I gave her was something kind rather than owed to her. "Good afternoon, sir." It would have been easy to say it plainly, to take her by the shoulders and speak the truth until something stirred, but I'd find no satisfaction in forcing the memory from her like a confession. Let it come of its own accord. Until that day, I could afford patience. To win her without title, without our history, and only on merit alone would be a victory beyond all. I came a step closer, my hand on my chest, and I swear, I thought my heart might explode beneath it. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am Captain Ashcombe. I have come to ask your assistance with a gathering Commandant Pembroke is having a week from Saturday." "Oh yes, of course," she said, her fingers skimming her apron in a nervous sweep, betraying her more than she intended. There was no cause for such fidgeting, save for my presence, and that suited me fine. So I said nothing, only letting the silence draw the colour to her cheeks again, letting her know I saw her and that I very much enjoyed it. She turned at last and nodded towards the sideboard. "Would you care for tea or coffee?" I shook my head, not because I lacked the desire, quite the opposite. I could linger and let the moment stretch, allowing myself to indulge in the shock of her existence. There were arrangements to finalize, though, and I waited too long to be careless now. "Later, perhaps," I said. "I would rather begin with business, if it is agreeable to you." But my mind raced ahead, past the celebration and the trivialities I could organize in my sleep, straight to the phone call I would make once I returned to the hotel. The Commandant requested a grand cake for the occasion, and whatever other confections this kind of thing requires. She exhaled hard, her eyes blinking away as she whispered, "A grand cake for next Saturday." Slightly twisting towards the back of the shop, she motioned away with her finger. "I will have to check my supplies. I am not certain I can deliver on that, even if I shut down until then." The absurdity of it nearly got a laugh from me. Supplies, access, time, all imaginary boundaries for people with no imagination. I'd run rifles and medicine through embargo zones only to settle a bet that I could, and all she required was flour and sugar. It was time to show her how simple such concerns might become with the right man beside her. So I laid a hand on her back and turned her towards the pantry. "Lead the way." I followed her towards the back of the building, close enough to register the clinging traces of her work. Vanilla, a squeeze of orange, sugar ground fine by heat and repetition. She moved without looking back, unaware that I was measuring every minor detail for strain and tolerance. How far to lean in for more information without breaking her? "Was it Sussex I heard in your voice?" She went into the room and moved aside to let me pass through the doorway, a soft laugh tumbling out when she shrugged. "I think so. It is difficult to remember now, but I often see a road sign for Sussex in my dreams." I passed by her closely, not near enough to alarm her, only enough to earn her notice. "My people are in Sussex as well." I turned to face her, gave her time to take it in, before I asked, "Small world, is it not?" So I fed her breadcrumbs enough for her to wonder and ask for more if and when she was ready, and she took the bait, as I knew she would. "Really?" she asked me, her hands coming to her mouth like a prayer answered. I have so many questions. Then she laughed at herself, her hands falling away from her and tears spilling from her lashes. But I cannot seem to think of a single one right now. How silly of me. I took my handkerchief from my pocket and touched her cheek with it. No, not silly at all, I said, brushing her tears aside. Whenever you remember those questions, my darling, I am ready to answer them. Right up on the hill I shall be. She let my touch linger only a moment before her eyes dropped between us, withdrawing as if I meant to strike her. Whether it was the memory of a man's touch she feared or mine in particular, I couldn't say, but I hated both scenarios equally. "Thank you, sir," she said as she swept her hair behind her ear and slipped past me from the corner I'd managed to back her into. Her fingers moved to the shelves, touching tins and parcels as she began reciting the inventory quietly to herself. I stepped in behind her, slow enough and far enough not to startle her. "You may call me Christian from now on, since we will be working together like this." She turned her attention back to me slowly, though, as if looking at me might help her piece it all together. Her lips formed my full name then, without a sound, stitching it to the edge of some half-shaped memory that wouldn't quite come forwards. But she only went back to her inventory until finally she spun towards me, her eyes all panicked as she brought her hands together. "I am not certain it can be done, Christian." She looked back and shook her head as she took it all in again. "There is simply not enough, and I am not due my lot until month's end." How fortunate for me. She needed just about everything, by the looks of her pantry, and it had always been my business to be everything she might need. "Not to worry," I told her, and pulled my notepad from my pocket. "That is why I am here." I twisted the barrel of my pen open and let the tip settle on the page as I awaited her command. "So tell me, my lady, how may I serve you?"